So, if you're a medical faculty member guiding postgraduate students, you already know the big challenge, right? How do you take that initial spark of curiosity from a student and help them shape it into a really solid, impactful research thesis? Well, that's exactly what this is all about. Think of it as a toolkit, a practical guide to help you empower that journey from start to finish.
All right, let's just jump right into the core question, the one that every mentor faces. How do we get from a good idea to truly impactful research? How do we help our students navigate that whole maze from a broad concept to a study that genuinely moves the needle in medicine? You know, the secret really is having a structured approach and, of course, the right tools for the job.
And this is exactly why it matters so much. This isn't just about getting a degree. The research that your students are doing can have, well, some pretty major real-world consequences. I mean, look at some of these examples from our source material. One thesis on COPD ended up providing vital local economic data. Another one on glaucoma actually helped change standard surgical techniques. From dermatology to public health policy for HIV patients, this work really, really matters.
Okay, so first things first. It all starts with finding the right topic. This initial phase is, without a doubt, one of the most critical. Our job is to guide students toward a subject that isn't just interesting to them, but one that's also genuinely actionable and, relevant.
Now, here's a fantastic tool to help with that. It's called the Feasibility Priority Matrix. Just think of it like a simple grid that helps students map out their ideas. And the goal? Well, the goal is to land in that sweet spot, that top right corner, high feasibility and high priority. That's where the magic happens, where you find research that's not only doable, but also addresses a really pressing need. It's just a brilliant way to steer them away from those projects that might become dead ends.
And building on that, another really powerful tool is this, the finer checklist. I love this. I think of it as a quick 5-point inspection for any potential thesis topic. Is it feasible? Do they have the time, the resources? Is it actually interesting to the student? Because if not, it's going to be a long road. Is it novel? Is it ethical? That's a non-negotiable. And finally, is it relevant? Just walking a student through these 5 questions can bring so much clarity and make sure the whole project is built on rock-solid ground.
So, once you've got a topic, the next big hurdle is to sharpen it. You have to go from this broad area of interest to a super specific, answerable research question. Honestly, this is where a lot of students get tangled up and where a good framework can make a world of difference. And for that, the PICO framework is just fantastic. It's a simple, powerful mnemonic that helps structure a clinical question. It really forces the student to get specific about the population they're studying, the intervention they're looking at, what they're comparing it to, and the exact outcome they're trying to measure.
And here's how it works in the real world. A really vague idea, something like diet and dementia, suddenly becomes a focused, testable question. You see it here. Among adults over 65, that's our population, does a high-fat diet intervention compared to a regular diet comparison affect the incidence of dementia outcome? See that? That clarity literally gives them a roadmap for the entire study. It's so powerful.
Okay, with that focused question locked in, now we get to the fun part, designing the study. That research question we just crafted, it's not just a formality. It dictates the entire methodological approach. This is basically the architectural phase of the project, and, well, getting the blueprint right is everything. Now, at a high level, the first big decision is often between a quantitative or a qualitative approach. So, are we trying to answer what or how many with numbers and stats? Or are we trying to explore the how and the why of something through things like in-depth interviews? Helping your student make this fundamental choice is a huge first step in designing their study. And this flowchart, wow, this is an incredible tool for you as a mentor. It's basically a decision tree. It visually walks the student through the logic of picking the right study design. You start with the basic aim. Are we just observing or are we intervening? And it branches out from there to help them pinpoint the perfect design, whether it's a cross-sectional study, a cohort study, or even a randomized controlled trial.
The next big question, who exactly is going to be in this study? This 5-step process really clarifies that path. It takes you all the way from defining the broad target population to the nitty-gritty of a recruitment strategy. It makes sure the student is thinking critically about their inclusion and exclusion criteria and has a real plan for finding a sample that truly represents the group they want to study.
And here it is, your go-to checklist. When your student hands you their proposal, you can just run down these 6 questions for their methodology section. It covers all the big stuff, a justified sample size, a detailed data plan, and of course, all the ethical considerations. It's a great way to make sure nothing critical has been missed.
So, the data is collected, the analysis is done, now what? Now we get to the part that turns all that hard work into an actual contribution to the field, writing it up and getting it out there. This is where a student really finds their academic voice, and honestly, it might be the phase where your mentorship can have the biggest impact on their future career.
And one of the most common little hurdles at this stage, referencing. I know it seems like a small detail, but getting it right is crucial for academic integrity. You can see the Vancouver-style here for articles versus books. Stressing this early and often can save everybody a massive headache down the line.
You know, this quote just nails the whole philosophy. A great protocol is what makes the science possible in the first place. But it's the sharing, the dissemination that makes the science actually matter. Research that just sits on a shelf isn't helping anyone. It's that final step that completes the circle, turning a student's project into a real piece of the larger scientific conversation.
So, let's just quickly recap the big takeaways for us as mentors. First, our guidance is the thread that runs through this entire process. Second, using structured tools like Finder and PICO brings that much-needed clarity. We have to champion the importance of a detailed protocol, rigorous ethics, and always, always keep our eyes on the prize, creating work that can have a real-world impact. And that really brings us to our final thought. The potential here is just immense, and the need for good research is never going away. So, as you get ready to guide your next student, the question isn't just what they're going to study, it's what knowledge gap they're going to fill and what impact they're ultimately going to have.